Welcome to How to Draw Comics Like a Pro, Hands and Feet Edition. I am your host, Mike S. Miller, a 27-year veteran of the comic book industry. This is one of my latest illustrations. Crossover comic book I am doing called Monster Hunt. You can get that at LoneStarComic.com in the description. If you want to check it out, please do. Otherwise, I am going to start here with a new page. This is actually a workshop, so if you do have questions, comments, drop them in the comments section. Any questions after I'm done with the basic topic here, which is hands and feet. Yay. Then please do feel free to ask questions. Yeah, just keep coming with the comments and suggestions, and that's how I'll gauge what I work on next. Hands and feet is a next logical step here, but yeah, I will take suggestions for a future program. All right, let's get to this. Drawing hands and feet. Where does one begin? Well, here's a hand according to 4-year-olds. Yay, actually, that's not a bad hand. Thing is, that's not terribly off, is it? Now, if you take this line, you can just kind of thicken it up. You're right. You're there. If you give your thumb a little more beef here, you're kind of following the right line. Thicken up each of these lines. That's actually not an entirely bad hand, is it? The hand is a basic shape. It's actually more of a square than a circle if you're going from this position, and then again a cylinder attaches to the base of it. We'll get into the specifics of the bone structures and the musculature and whatnot. But then you have a hinge here, from which protrude other bones that beget fingers. But that is internal structure, anatomy, whatever you want to call it. This is not actually what you end up drawing, is it? No, what you're drawing a square. Actually, you're drawing a wedge. Let's do this from a different angle. Let's draw a hand from this angle. You're drawing a wedge. And this is all stuff you just kind of have to have in your mind. It is not you're drawing a wedge. It is attached to a cylinder, right? The body is made up of squares, spheres, right? Cylinders, wedges, rectangles. What else we got? I think I can make a body out of all those. Cones. Well, no, that's just a tapered cylinder, isn't it? Etc., etc. So let's start again. You're starting with a wedge. The hand is a wedge. It is on the end of a cylinder. The wedge has cylinders protruding from it. Now the cylinders it's not like, hey, here's a cylinder, right? Okay, true, that is the case. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to take 3 cylinders and create a cascade of cylinders. So actually what you might want to do is you want to look at your hand. How do I want to draw this? And you decide, all right, I want my hand to look kind of like this. One finger kind of up and the other finger's kind of drifting down. The best thing to learn from, again, is reality. So you have one finger going here, one finger going here, another finger going here, another finger kind of curving in here, and then your thumb is coming out here. Now these are all made of, again, cylinders. Cylinder, 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 right? Cylinder, 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 cylinder behind the cylinder, cylinder, and cylinder behind the cylinder, 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 cylinder. And there we have the very simple layout of the hand. So you want to draw for lack of a better term, you want to draw your stick figure hand, right? Just like you did in 3rd grade, doing whatever you want your hand to do. And then you fill that with the cylinders. Cylinder, 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 cylinder. I'm not going to just keep repeating cylinder. You see what I'm doing. I'm building cylinders into the shapes of the fingers. And now this is basic structural stuff. This is not going to be my final illustration. You're just getting an idea. And obviously, you look at this and you say, well, wow, I just drew that cylinder too big. So taper that cylinder in a little bit. Make sure it's the right length. A hand, the generic hand, your index finger is one length, your middle finger slightly longer. Your 3rd finger is about the length of your index finger, and then your pinky is considerably shorter. So you have a cascade here. I don't want to jump right into well, actually, you know what? Let's jump into the feet, because the feet it's a similar paradigm. You are also drawing a wedge, right? You're drawing a wedge, at the bottom of a cylinder, and then a larger cylinder. The cylinders of the toes, they kind of curl in, and obviously your big toe is going to be your largest cylinder. So you have 2 cylinders on the big toe. You got to flatten these cylinders out like that, right? Not like, the finger is actually the fingers can be flattened. Wow, I'm just thinking about that. That's what Jack Kirby did, right? His finger cylinders were like this. He always did these big, fat, wide, I don't know, I guess you could call them like toe thumbs or something. Toe fingers. Anyways, and then the little toes are 3 very short cylinders. 3 short cylinders. 3 short cylinders. And then the little toe, at least on my foot, curls in, and on my wife's foot, and on the feet of everybody I know in the family. If you want to go into the details, there's the ball of the foot, the arch of the foot, the heel goes up to the ankle, etc., etc., etc. But the basic construct of the toe of the foot, again, is the wedge, just like the hand is a wedge. So let's see, the hand wedge is more of a less tapered block. The foot wedge is almost like a doorstop. And then you have, again, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have your thumb beginning over here. Same, obviously, hands and feet. They're different, but construction basics are similar. All right, now how to get a little more detailed. After you kind of have to understand this stuff, because this is structural, right? This is all the structural stuff you want in the back of your head when you are constructing, like, say I'm doing somebody's arm, right? I'm doing like, all right, I got their arm, and then I want to do their hand. So I don't sit there and think, oh my gosh, I have to draw a wedge. It's all back. It becomes background information in your mind. The consistency, it's still there. Cascade the fingers, because it's sort of a natural feeling. Like your hands can do anything, right? And it's fun to kind of like do, like, Spider-Man or Doctor Strange or rock with the devil or whatever you're gonna do, hola ha. But sort of a natural gesturing sort of thing is this. It's like you just gesture your hand out and then look at it. The fingers do form a cascade. It is a good go-to if you have a character doing something that is not considered abnormal or terribly specific, wrapping your hand around a gun or whatever. Cascade those fingers down along that cascade line, keeping in mind the 3 cylinders and conforming them to whatever initial quote-unquote stick figure layout you have for the hand, like that, and then your thumb. But I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do the wedge and I have to do the cylinders. It becomes, once you understand that, once that is logged into your mind, then it's you can sit there and you can just draw a hand and be like, oh yeah, because you're like, I know already the basic underlying structure, so I don't have to think about it every single time I draw. It becomes second nature, I guess is the way to say it. After 20, 30, 40 years, however long it takes you to draw. Let me tighten this one up for you. So I'm going to lighten this up. So in tightening up and creating the details, I try to do this based more sort of a Bridgman-y structural way rather than getting too into the weeds on anatomy and physiology. I'm not going to say it's all you need. It's important to learn your anatomy, but I think it's more important to understand the structure, the underlying structure that puts the body together. There are people who know their anatomy but don't understand the structure, and you look at them and they're like, wow, like all the muscles are in the right places and whatnot, but something just looks weird about it. So I think it's I'm not going to say more important. It's vitally important that you know both. I don't know about vitally. It depends on your style. If you're going for like an anime style, then knowing your structure, or anime or a more cartoony or less detailed style, then just knowing your structure, you can get away with that. And I would say that's more important than learning the specifics of anatomy. Knowing the muscles of the forearm, that's anatomy. But if you're doing a cartoon, you don't have to throw that in. You don't have to know the veins split between the first and second finger here, and then go around the third finger here, and then go back and then taper back into the arm. You don't have to know every little thing. And plus, anyways, everybody's veins are a little bit different. They're like fingerprints. But you don't have to know that the metacarpals go back here into these little wrist, the bones in the palm of your hand and your wrist, and then attached to, what is this, the tibia and the fibia, etc. and etc. But hey, you should look all this stuff up. Learn it. Let's do the foot again. Let's go back to the foot and get a little bit more specific on the foot. So if I'm drawing the foot, again, I don't concentrate too much because I already know the foot is a wedge. I can just kind of shorthand it out, right? I can shorthand these things, and then give your details, your little veins. Again, ball of the foot, unless you have a flat foot. I don't know why you'd specifically draw somebody with flat feet, but don't. And I apologize for anyone with flat feet. My brother has flat feet, but they're not attractive. Actually, feet aren't attractive, so there's no real win here. They're feet. Apologies to anyone who is a foot fetishist. All right, so foot. You know what? Let's go male versus female. So men have thicker wrists, thicker fingers, and then let's do a female hand. And that's kind of a weird thing, is that more often than not, comic book artists don't think about the difference between male and female hands. They just like, I can draw hands. Okay, so as I did before, male hands tend to be thicker. Some males thicker than others. They tend to blunt. They tend to just sort of stay not completely the same thickness all the way from base to tip, but relatively. I mean, Kirby kind of really, you know how the Thing, his fingers just go like that? That's kind of like a super over exaggeration of what I'm talking about. Whereas, and again, thicker wrists, almost, let's see if the wrist is going to go up here, like 3.5 fingers wide on the wrist. Females are much thinner wrists, and the fingers taper. Female fingers, at least in reality, maybe not always in comic books, but female fingers taper like this. Unless, I don't know, you spent too many nights eating cheeseburgers. Female fingers tend to taper. This isn't the greatest illustration ever, but I'm just trying to get a point across here. Actually, this is a really long hand. Also, the wrist, it can't, or the hand can taper out from the wrist, right? But kind of shorthand. This is John Byrne, right? Just a straight line from the wrist to the thing. It does taper a little bit, so I don't know. Be mindful of that, I guess. Let's look at fingers. Let's look at a finger. So a finger, it's one bone on top of another bone, and then finally the fingertip. So when you're drawing the meat around this, there's a fatty tissue under here. The knuckles are relatively not fattened. You get to the knuckle, the skin crumples around it. On the like I'm saying, the top side, it's skin and bone. Unless you're inordinately large, it's skin and bone. Finger tip is obviously tipped by a fingernail. The bottom side is a little fattier tissue, right? So the bottom side is a little fattier tissue. And then again, for males, it generally comes to kind of either a round or semi-flattened tip, but not like a female. A female, all of this would be gone, and the female tip would taper in like that, just like the bones do. I guess they just have less fat around their hands for some reason. I haven't really looked into why. One way to sort of exaggerate this, I guess, is by thinking of your bones, your knuckles, as like bamboo ridges or such. So you can play with the knuckles and give them a little extra girth. So that is one way to do. Who does this? I know there are artists that do this, I do it a little bit sometimes. I just give a little more attention to the knuckles than reality should probably dictate. Of course, there are people who have extremely bony knuckles. So yeah, this is all sort of generalized structure, generalized anatomy, however you want to say it. Okay, let's see. It's holding up a little flower. Whee, flower. Be free. Someone was saying fists. So drawing a fist, you want to think it's a block, right? It's a block. It's divided up into 4 sections. Obviously, if you know how to throw a punch, you wrap your thumb on the outside to close up the fingers and tighten it up. Express the knuckles at the top. And what I tend to do is I think of I learned this from Taekwondo. Think of the two fingers, This is the 2 knuckle punch. Taekwondo teaches. Wing Chun teaches a 3 knuckle punch, but you punch with these 3 knuckles. In Taekwondo, you punch with these 2 knuckles. I do then taper the other 2 knuckles inside, and then again the fat on the inside of the finger bunches up. So this just becomes like a little bunch here, and then you have the skin on the inside between your thumb and your index finger just folds in and creates a nice little wrinkled wedge in there, right? So you fold in, fold in, fold in. It's like think of it like a bat wing or a dragon wing or something. And then this is a muscle right here. See that? Bam. See that muscle right there I'm flexing? That's the muscle right here on the outside. And then the back of your thumb knuckle comes here, and then follow through. It's hard to imagine because you have to think behind what you're drawing to where because what you don't want to do is say like, oh, okay, the wrist starts here, because no, the wrist does not start there. You are still dealing with the full structure of the hand. So the wedge is here, the wrist or the cylinder for the wrist is back here. So don't actually, that's a really big. This is like an unrealistically thick comic book wrist. Have you seen how Joe Mad draws? He'll draw wrists like this. Like this. This will be. Your wrist will be like as wide as your entire fist. And, it can look cool. Mad really does understand structure. And that's kind of the thing. Once you understand structure, you can play with it. You can warp it. You can stylistically make things ridiculous, like right? Okay, basic human structure. Here. Well, I'm just doing thing. But if you, hey, I'm just going out getting some chips from the cabinet. Basic human structure. But if you understand how all the mechanics of the body and all the structures work, you can do a creature that's like ridiculously wrong design-wise. I mean, like inhuman or exaggerated structurally, right? You can give him giant, beefy forearms and wrists, tiny little biceps, overdeveloped deltoids, teeny tiny little head, tiny pecs, just so that the deltoids continue to look ridiculously big, but huge lats, extra muscles in the stomachs, and tiny little obliques. You can give them giant legs. And you can do all this ridiculously wrong and anatomical stuff, but if you know the structure, right? You know how muscle groups anchor here. They anchor to the arm here. You understand the pulleys and the levers of the body. You can go in and you can make this ridiculous looking thing seem like it could be real. You can make it look like, well, that would actually work in reality, even though it's just wonky and goofy. I mean, I guess this is how you design cool monsters, right? Heck, just give this guy 3 fingers instead, because you're basing it on a true understanding of form, structure, anatomy, and then you're playing with it. You're not just throwing crap at the door and seeing what sticks. You're designing a new anatomical construct. Oh yeah, I could even make it into I could make this into a robot or whatever. So this all comes from having all of that information already logged into your head. That's the sort of thing. So you can make something like that, which obviously couldn't exist in real life because nothing looks like that anatomically in real life. But if you design it and you hand it to a 3D modeler or a sculptor, they could build something off of that would actually look real, right? Hands holding a sword. All right, holding an object. When drawing a hand holding an object, keep in mind there's an object in the hand. There are a number of very prominent, very successful, very famous, very popular creators who will draw a closed fist holding a gun, holding a sword, holding a staff. If your fist looks like this, the only thing you're holding in it is sweat. Okay? Drives me a little nuts. Keep in mind, if you have something, if you're putting your hand around an object, the object has mass. It takes space. So if here's the palm of your hand, right? Your knuckles are curving around the object. Your pinky is short. It will not make it all the way around the object. Your ring finger is slightly longer, and therefore it will make it slightly more around the object. Your middle finger is slightly longer than that, and therefore it will make its way further around the object. And then index finger is about the same size as your ring finger, and it will slightly less than that. Now your thumb, you have to decide what you want to do with your thumb. If he's holding a sword, he can either have a golfer's grip where he's wrapping around the sword, or he can bend the thumb, and it would really just basically touch the tip of the index finger coming around. I know it may not look like as tight a grip as someone who's just drawing a tight gripped fist, right? See, that's a nice tight grip fist. You can't, no air is going to escape that fist. And then you're like, well, gosh, I'm going to draw a sword hilt in that fist. Stylistically, it might look like it's just a really tight grip, but it's just completely unrealistic. If you could close your pinkies to your palm with whatever you're holding a pen. That's about as big of a grip as you can get. Maybe even this thick of a pen. Okay, that thick. That's about as thick as you can get. If you're grabbing a sword, you can't. The fingers won't touch the palm because the fingers are only reaching the grip itself. And then again, your thumb is just touching your index finger here. Stop copying people you're looking at in comic books and start looking at things in real life. You have something. You have a hammer. You have a gun. You have something that you can wrap your hand around and see exactly how it looks. So that is gripping. I am literally holding a sword, not the other object, and two of my fingers touch the palm. Here's the thing. I'm 5'7", and I have small hands. So take that into account. If to you the sword I just picked up is the size of a pen, then yeah, then your fingers can touch your palm. Unless you have abnormally massive hands, then you're not going to be able to do that. Anything pretty much above the size of another finger is going to change the mass of your hand in your fist. So just keep it in mind. Reference stuff yourself. I just guarantee you the artists that I'm referring to don't have hands much bigger than mine, and they draw everything they're holding with clenched fists, and it's whatever, it's art. I'm not going to say it's wrong. It just doesn't work for me. I could just sit here and draw hands. Some of you are more interested in the feet. Strange, huh? Strange days indeed. Good art is good art. No doubt about it. In the 90s, we were too busy making money to draw hands, right? Oh! It's true. And remember, when in doubt, you have reference for hands on hand. It is the most easily referenceable thing in the world is a hand, because unless you've only got the one hand, you can draw with one and reference the other. I know. Mike still can't control his trolling. Oh, there's something we should talk about. Fingernails. Up close and personal with the fingernail. So the cylinder, the end of the fingertip. Okay, and here's another thing. Everybody's fingernails are different. You can either reference your own, or if you have egregiously ugly fingernails, then like look at the fingers from like magazines or whatnot and get an idea of what beautiful fingernails look like. Clearly we don't all have them. I do, but that's neither here nor there. So a fingernail. So fingernails from one angle. Remember that the fingernail the cylinder is here. The fingernail wraps around the cylinder. So if you're looking at it straight on, it's either going to look like this, or if you're looking at the bottom of the fingernail, it's just going to be a line across the top, but it curves along with the cylinder, and then it pockets itself into the quick, which isn't really something usually pay a lot of attention to, because you're not usually drawing fingers this big. And I mean, if you want to get really specific, then you draw the quick, which is tiny layer of cuticle, I think it's called. Yeah, this is the cuticle, this is the quick. The quick is the part that connects your fingertip or your fingernail under the front of your finger. So like if you pull it up, you ever like pull it up, bend your fingernail like that, and then like this part rips off. It's like that's the quick of your nail. This is the cuticle. This is the part where if you're getting a manicure, they will take a little bamboo stick and they will shove your cuticle back up into your thing so that you don't see that ugly, ugly little cuticle. Anyways, that's what it is. And so if you're sideways on the nail, sideways on the finger, and you're looking at the nail, the cuticle ends here. It's not a straight line. The cuticle ends and the fingernail comes out. It comes down at an angle because the fingernail broadens until it hits the tip of the finger. Now, again, this is standard. If you're a guy who eats his own fingernails, bites his fingernails, and you've eaten your quick back like 1/4 of an inch, then you're going to end up with fingers that look like this. Where the fingernail goes back here, you have finger coming out past that. Ways to make fingers look cool. So there's different ways to go about this. I kind of like do this thing where you take the first knuckle and you kind of sweep it back in. It's kind of a stylistic thing. Maybe I shouldn't be getting into stylizing stuff. This is a stylistic thing, but what Carlos Pacheco loves to do, and I love Carlos's style. So he'll draw a hand, right? And again, it's not realistic, but it looks cool. He'll do this shape where the whole finger just sort of whips in here, right? I don't know if he still does this, but he just draws this whipping in from the first knuckle whipping back into the, and I'm over exaggerating this so you can know what I'm talking about. He does this, and it is a very fun, appealing, and that's the thing. If you know structure, like I was saying before, if you know structure, you can do things that aren't necessarily accurate but are still visually appealing. And this is one of the things I like Carlos does with his stylizing. He does fingers like that. Maybe that's not exact or perfect or anything, but it is art. It is art. So you do have the benefit of being able to do things that are not necessarily accurate, as long as you are doing things that look good. Otherwise, you're just an art snob. You're an art snob. Do you want everything to look like Leonardo da Vinci drew it? I mean, come on. This is comics. This is comics, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a fine art school. I'm teaching you how to draw comics like a pro, not how to draw like Leonardo da Vinci. I'm going to hand holding a cigarette. That's fun. So, let's see. Cigarette. I love drawing people smoking. I know it's weird. I'm not a smoker. I hate smoking itself. But boy, drawing people smoking is so much fun because it gives you stuff to do with their hands. Cool, fun, designy stuff to do with the smoke. There's so much cool stuff you can do with smoke. This isn't it, but I'm just saying. And obviously this is a dude, because it's very thick hands, but I could taper these in and make it more feminine, make these fingers smaller, since it's sort of a feminine gesture, like so. That thumb is still a little too masculine, but anyways, there, a cigarette holding hand, and you're welcome. Like I said, learn the structure, learn the anatomy, and then figure out how you want to play with it and create your own styles. And again, style comes your structure and your anatomy and your self-actualization of the artwork is the steak. It's the meat. If you want to take a little style from Jim Lee, you want to take a little style from Carlos Pacheco, you want to take a little style from Art T. Bear or anyone, that should just be seasoning on the steak. You still want it to be you. You're just grabbing a little bit from here and a little bit from there. You don't want to be a clone of anybody else. I know in mainstream that's how you get work because editors are too stupid to know how to know the difference between good and bad. Anyways, this is not Lone Star, but please do go down to the description if you have not already. Pick up a copy of Lone Star. That is my book that has got all my fun, fancy art in it. And if you like what you're seeing here, you want to support me, that is a great way to do it. Here's Lone Star saying bye, everybody. Comments, questions, what you want to see on the next show, leave it in the comments section. And have a great day, and we'll see you next time.